I'm Phil Spencer and welcome back to Bonkers for Boro. In this episode, we're going to be talking all about Aidan Morris, the man who has come over to England and become not just the signing of the season for Middlesbrough, but probably for the EFL as a whole. Now, Aidan Morris arrived over the summer from Columbus Crew, taking the opportunity to move to Teesside and link up with Michael Carrick, who we'll get onto in a little bit. He played a really key role in bringing Morris to the club. Tempting him to England and proving to him that it was the right place to develop his career. Now, we'll get onto this shortly, but Aidan Morris has certainly adapted to life in England better than anyone would have expected. I personally thought it was going to take a little while for him to adapt to the demands of the EFL. Sometimes it doesn't always translate between the MLS and the EFL. Some players kind of struggle with the physicality and the increase in technical quality, but Aidan Morris has adapted to it and more. If anything, he's looking like a real natural fit in the English game and someone who has the potential to go on to become a real star for both club and country. Now, when Middlesbrough signed him over the summer, it was the product of around 2 years of hard work. And this was hard work that predates basically the scouting team's work at Middlesbrough. For those that don't know, Kieran Scott came into the club a couple of years ago to take up the role as a Middlesbrough sporting director, overseeing the scouting network and the transfer business. He brought in Chris Jones, who was a scout who had been at Crystal Palace. He brought in a couple of other people who he'd worked with previously at Norwich City. Now, Aidan Morris had been a player who was on the radar of both of those clubs as a result of how much he was impressing these scouts individually. Now, all of these people came together at Middlesbrough, formed the team under Kieran Scott, and all of them individually and collectively were saying, we need to sign this guy. Aidan Morris needs to come to Middlesbrough. And so Kieran Scott went about his business and did exactly that. He was able to bring him into the club this summer, the summer of 2024, bringing him in from Columbus Crew for a fee, which is reported to be in the region of around about £4 million. Now, that move is one that it represented a fairly sizable outlay for a club in the Championship in the current climate. But what we're seeing from Aidan Morris is something that was definitely needed by Middlesbrough. He's a player who's come in. He certainly hit the ground running. Kieran Scott went to see him a lot himself. The scouts went out to see him in the MLS playing for Columbus Crew. Kieran Scott went out there as well. And as you can see from the quotes just there, Kieran Scott was just really impressed with what he saw from Aidan Morris. He was saying that the crowd were with him when he saw him at Columbus Crew. They loved him, which we all saw when he left. Obviously, there was glowing tributes. There was a real sort of fond farewell, quite an emotional moment, really, when Aidan Morris came off the pitch in his final match for Columbus Crew before joining Middlesbrough. He was just a really popular player due to the wholehearted way that he went about his business. Every time he got the ball, Kieran Scott said, for a young kid, it felt like he was just in charge. And then what stood out was his young arrogance. At such a young age, it was like, just give me the ball. The games over there are different, not the same intensity, so I wasn't really looking at that element, but you could see immediately he was a tidy footballer, good with both feet and with a little bit of acceleration to get his body in front, which he's done well so far here as well, I should say. The game I saw wasn't of a particularly high level, but he just looked a lad ready to come and play in England. He had the devilment and determination to be a success here. Now, obviously showing that in the MLS is one thing. Kieran Scott mentioned it there about the level of quality on show in the MLS and kind of maybe taking that a bit with a pinch of salt, but he clearly showed enough in those games to prove that he was capable of moving to England and making an impression, and that's something which he's certainly done since moving to the Riverside Stadium. Now, Aidan Morris, for those who don't know, he was born in Florida. He's a US international. He's now a senior international, and he grew up as a supporter of Manchester United. Now, he was an admirer of Michael Carrick, Roy Keane, Paul Scholes, and players like that. That was really his kind of era when he was growing up. And so the chance to play with Michael Carrick or play under Michael Carrick was one that he just absolutely couldn't turn down. Michael Carrick's obviously in charge of Middlesbrough. He has been for 3 years now. He's well known for his time at Tottenham and West Ham, but most of all, Manchester United, where he was a key player under Sir Alex Ferguson, winning heaps of titles, heaps of trophies along the way. And that's something that ultimately Middlesbrough fans will be hoping that he can do with Middlesbrough at the Riverside as well. Now, Aidan Morris, it was just an absolute dream for him to come and play under Michael Carrick. Speaking of the move to play under him, he was saying he's been great. I try to be a sponge and take it all in, learn as much as I can and ask as many questions as I can. I'm sure our relationship will keep getting better. Man United was my team growing up, so it's kind of cool being around one of the players I watched growing up. He helps me in training. He pulls me aside sometimes and tells me little things that he's seen. And this is just the start. I'm sure it will continue. So Morris has really slotted in to that central midfield area as far as Middlesbrough are concerned, playing alongside Aidan Hackney, who has been basically one of Carrick's pet projects since he came to the club. Straight away, he brought Hackney into the first team fold. He played sporadically previous to that, but Michael Carrick saw potential in him. Aidan Hackney is a typical sort of number 8, likes to get on the ball, likes to get forward, likes to break between the lines. But what we've sort of seen in the last couple of seasons is that he's maybe been missing someone who has the aggression to play behind him, someone who can cover him, someone who can pick up the ball from defenders, turn, recycle possession, and then get the team moving that way. We've been lacking that. Middlesbrough have over the last couple of seasons, and Aidan Morris came in and has just absolutely hit the ground running in that role. He's really been the missing piece of the jigsaw as far as Middlesbrough are concerned and as far as Michael Carrick's team are concerned. You've got to say that since he came to the club, it's really been quite spectacular how he's taken to life in the Championship. I first saw him in a pre-season friendly against Gateshead. It was one of the first pre-season friendlies of the summer, so it's quite difficult to judge. You don't want to draw too many conclusions because there's teams are putting out 2 different teams in both halves. Obviously, Gateshead are playing in the National League, which is the 5th tier of English football. So it was a game where you can't really draw too many conclusions. Aidan Morris that night came on at half time. He was warming up with the rest of the Middlesbrough team in the first half, right in front of where I was sitting. And he looked quite a shy lad, someone who was watching the game. Obviously, the rest of the team kind of knew each other quite well. He wasn't really speaking to them a huge amount. Looked a little bit shy. He's obviously only been at the club for a short while previous to that. And you're kind of thinking, he seems quite timid and quite shy and reserved and that sort of thing. But then he came on in the second half and he was just absolutely outstanding. Similar to what Kieran Scott was saying previously, he just wanted to get on the ball straight away. He turned into a different animal. He was wanting to pick up the ball from defenders. He was nipping into challenges. He was putting in tough tackles, which is something that you don't necessarily see in pre-season matches. And I think for me, notably, it was that turn of pace when he gets the ball. He was able to nip away from his man, and then his instinct was always to look forward. He wasn't someone who was happy passing it back to the centre-back or passing it sideways. His first instinct was always looking forward to see if he could pass it up to a more advanced midfield player or up to the attacking third. Now, since the season started, that's just continued even more. We've been able to see it on a much more consistent basis. He's formed a real partnership with Aidan Hackney, as I've mentioned, and those two have just really, really complemented each other. And I know Middlesbrough fans are very excited about the two of them, but even zooming out slightly and looking at the Championship as a whole, it's very, very difficult to see a more exciting and more complete midfield pairing anywhere in the league. They've been that good. They're both very young. So it's been it hasn't been perfect. The start of the season, there's been moments where Middlesbrough have looked a little bit open. Obviously, Aidan Morris is still adapting to life in England, although he has taken to it remarkably well. And you've got to think that those two are only going to go from strength to strength the more time that they play together. They've also got the experience of Johnny Howson and Dan Barlaser supporting them. Johnny Howson has been at the club for a number of years and will obviously be passing on lots of wisdom to the pair of them. But certainly Aidan Morris and Aidan Hackney are looking like very much like the future of Middlesbrough in that midfield area, and something which is being really the beating heart of Middlesbrough's plans moving forward. So if we have a little look at Aidan Morris's season so far, now this graphic doesn't include 2 cup appearances that he made in the Carabao Cup, a 3-0 win against Leeds and then a 5-0 defeat to Stoke City as Middlesbrough got knocked out. But you can see here that he's been a virtual ever-present, really, as far as Middlesbrough are concerned. I personally thought that he'd be sort of eased into the fold a little bit more at the start of the season. Someone who might have to bide his time and wait until September or October to get in there, because previously it had been Johnny Howson and Aidan Hackney who had occupied those midfield spots. But he came in and has pretty much been a first-team regular ever since. His performances have been really consistent, playing in that sort of deep-lying central midfield role. He started the vast majority of the games. I think he was rested against Preston from the starting 11, but he did come on late in the second half. But what you can see there on that graphic is just how consistent his performances have been. He's clearly a trusted member of the team. While results have been mixed, you can say Middlesbrough fans know all about that. In terms of the mixed nature of things have started to pick up a little bit recently, and you're kind of looking at a team who were just kind of starting to click into gear. And I think Aidan Morris is going to be a massive part of that moving forward. The hope is just that Middlesbrough can keep him fit and that he can keep up this level of performance, because I think any new player coming into England is going to have inconsistencies, have moments where they lose form, but so far so good as far as he's concerned. We're now in mid-November. He certainly hasn't looked out of place in any of the matches so far. If anything, he's actually looked like one of Middlesbrough's better performers, and actually one of the Championship's better performers, as we can see in this next graphic here. Now, I'm not going to go through every line of this graphic here. It's quite detailed here in terms of his statistics in shooting, passing, possession, and defending. The stats have been taken from FotMob, a really reliable database of football statistics in the Championship and around the world as well. But you can see just how influential he's really been. The bars next to the numbers, they kind of show how he ranks compared to other midfielders in the Championship. So for the lines that are full green lines, he's up near the top end of the Championship's performers. Oranges are a bit more mediocre, and the reds are where he's at the lower end of the spectrum. So looking at that, you can see obviously he hasn't scored any goals. He's had just one shot on target, which is near the lower end, but that's absolutely fine. That's not what Aidan Morris's game is about. He does like to have a shot from distance. He hasn't scored yet. He has hit the crossbar. He has seen a couple of shots go whistling over the bar as well. So you do sort of feel like there's going to be a couple of stunners in his locker. I'd probably be surprised if he didn't end up with at least a couple of goals before the end of the season. But moving on from that, you can see exactly where his strengths lie when you go into the passing section. 904 successful passes at the time of recording, a pass accuracy of 93.8%, 49 accurate long ball accuracy, very, very good as well, among the best in the Championship. In terms of possession, successful dribbles, very, very good. We mentioned before about his turn of pace and his ability to keep hold of the ball before passing off to a teammate. Touches in the opposition box, very, very high as well. So he is getting the ball in dangerous areas. He's not just picking it up in front of his defenders and then playing the easy ball back to them. He is getting forward. He is providing an extra number in attack, and he is kind of dictating play while giving it to the club's more attacking players as well. You can see as well he's won a decent number of fouls in midfield, which is a big part of it. That is also down to the fact that he picks up the ball in dangerous positions, is able to shield the ball very well and often wins some fouls that way. And his tackling statistics, as you can see, are very good as well. Recoveries in particular, he's had 72 successful recoveries over the course of the season, which once again is among the best in the Championship. So you can really see from these statistics and the amount of green lines that are in there, just how highly he's performing, just how quality his displays are, how he's comparing to other players in a similar position in the Championship, and just how influential he's really being. He's someone who's come in and just really hit the ground running. There's been no adaptation period. I've heard him, I think it was on the Boro Breakdown podcast, I heard someone referring to him being like a terrier, and it's just so accurate. He's just someone who has that. He's not a nasty player by any means. He's not a Roy Keane. He's not someone who is putting himself about for the sake of doing it, but he's got the correct kind of aggression. Someone who presses opponents hard, who likes to put them under pressure. He's not scared to put in a tackle, but that aggression also applies when he's on the ball. He's not happy just passing it backwards or sideways, as I've mentioned before. He looks to get on the ball. He looks to do things with urgency. He pushes forward. He likes to urge the team forward as well, and that's something which has been really encouraging as far as Middlesbrough have been concerned this season. He's someone who's come in, hit the ground running, been an excellent signing. And I think with the fact that he's now playing kind of more regularly for the US national team as well, I think fans in America are going to start seeing this a little bit more as well. I know that they'll have seen a lot of him at Columbus Crew. I'm not sure how much fans will watch Middlesbrough in America. But certainly his performances are very, very exciting. Hopefully you'll be able to show a little bit more of that for the US national team as well. And yeah, hopefully, as far as Middlesbrough are concerned, he can continue these performances and help Middlesbrough to kick on and sustain their positive run of form. I really want to hear from you. Drop into the comments below and let me know what your thoughts are on Aidan Morris and his performances this season. I think he's been absolutely outstanding. I think he's been one of Middlesbrough's best performers this term. But drop into the comments below. Let me know what you think of him. And if you have enjoyed this video, hit like and hit subscribe as well. And I'll catch up with you next time.